What's good, YouTube? This video is going to be about 5 dating tips for introverts. Okay, I get a lot of clients who are introverts and not really people. They have their own energy and they kind of sit in that. And then when they go outside to date, things are very awkward and they think that they're doing something wrong and they feel inadequate. And that sucks the relationship potential from these dates, and that sucks the energy out of the room, giving their dates and them a bad time. So we're going to try to dig into a few of these tips to help a few of my introvert clients do better on these dates and perform a little bit better by preparing themselves a little bit more intentionally. But first, I am having a coaching sale. If you're looking to have a one-on-one consultation with me, they are about $20 off right now for hours, and I think $10 off right now for half hour. So if you're interested, click the link below. Now onto this topic. The first tip for the dating introvert is prepare the conversation topics, prepare possible things that you can say, prepare questions, comments, concerns, whatever you want to talk about or address on the date before you get on the date or before you get on the phone. I remember when I used to date, I used to be a heavy introvert. Now I'm kind of an ambivert, but before I was an introvert and I was really quiet and I didn't really like to express myself to strangers that much, but I've always been a great conversationalist. But when you like a person, and when I liked a woman, I would be a lot more nervous. And so I didn't know what to talk about. So I could have a really dull conversation. Even though I'm a pretty good conversationalist, I could be dull in overthinking the conversation. So what I started doing was getting a notebook and writing down my thoughts, my ideas, possible conversations, things I'm passionate about, things I want to know about that woman, my questions, my curiosities, my passions, my likes, my dislikes, all of those different things on a notebook pad. So when we were having a conversation, if anything triggered my interest or triggered that person's interest, I already had some ideas or I already had some things that I wanted to talk about within that realm or in that subject matter. And so I always had a plan for the conversation, and that made me a better conversationalist, and that built more bonding and more warmth into these conversations that I was having with women. And it also gave them a better experience and made me feel more comfortable and confident because I knew what I wanted to talk about. And if I forgot, I had it written down on notebook paper, right? If you're an introvert, you have to prepare yourself for these conversations because sometimes, again, you get in your head, you don't know a person, you're not very comfortable, you're overthinking how you're coming off, what you're saying, if you said the right thing, how they respond to you. So you need to know what you can talk about, what you're willing to talk about, and what you're passionate about talking about, and also what makes you feel very comfortable. You have to speak with confidence, and you can't do that if every subject is a surprise or you don't guide the conversation into places where you're most competent and therefore more confident. When we overthink these social interactions or these dating conversations we have, we often draw blanks, and that again ruins the date, gives our dates a more dull experience, and then they might not like us because we were dull when we really were just nervous. And we might, close up a little bit because we're a little bit nervous about being dull, and we start to see ourselves underperforming, which shuts our energy down and it shuts us off to them. So a lot of times people don't go on a second date, not because they were not capable of having better conversations or we're not socially or intellectually compatible, but they were both just nervous and responding to each other's nerves. So anyway, prepare yourself for the conversation, write some notes down. If you got a phone, write a cheat sheet down in your phone if you're going to be out and about talking to somebody so that you can reference it every time the conversation gets a little bit dull or you're starting to feel a little bit self-conscious about what you're talking about. Moving on, the second tip for dating introverts is try to do something active and something that takes you out of your head. A lot of times we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to be very, very socially acute. Unfortunately enough, we disappoint ourselves from time to time. Too often, we don't do active enough dates that engage us physically, right? And take the overthought away from us because we're too busy performing a task or doing a team sport or accomplishing a goal with the person that we're on a date with. This does a few things. First of all, you have to check the chemistry that you have as a couple to accomplish a goal or to do fun things or to just be active, right? That's a very important chemistry because it translates well into relationships and a couple's ability to collaborate on things together and work together. A lot of people don't have that type of chemistry. And I recently did a video on about 12 different types of chemistry. You should probably look back. I think I did it about a month ago. Look into that video with 12 different types of chemistry. And one was like work chemistry or task chemistry, something along the lines of accomplishing something together as a couple. That's very important. But as an introvert, doing things that help you grow together and accomplish something together puts your mind on the task and takes your mind off of how you look. Takes your mind off of how you're being perceived or how a person's responding to you. As an introvert, you have a little bit more nervousness about, the world in relationship to you and how you might relate to people. So when you come to a date and you set a date based on performing a task together, whether that's cooking a thing or whether that's a sport that you play together or a sport you play against each other. It becomes about that task, and that fun kind of clouds your vision. That excitement for that task kind of clouds your vision, and it takes you out of your mind so that you can just have a good time with your date, which makes you feel more confident, because if you're having fun, you're going to feel more confident in yourself and also give your date a better experience. Moving on, the third tip for dating introverts is, if you're not going to do something active to get your mind out of it, to take yourself away from this mental pressure that you might put yourself under to perform socially or intellectually, if you're not going to do that and you're going to need to have a great conversation, make sure you pick the right environment. Pick a low-key environment, a low-stimulus environment, an environment that doesn't assault your sensibilities already. Too often, a dating introvert, a woman might let a man pick a date for her, and he might pick a really high-energy place, loud place, a place with a lot of people, a lot of movement, things that make us as introverts feel like it's just chaos. And then you put yourself under pressure to be intellectually stimulating, mentally and emotionally aware and impressive for this person that you're in front of. You put yourself under this pressure to be great when you know you can be great. You're smart. You're probably mentally gifted. You think very deeply about things. But in a chaotic environment, that might not show up, right? But if you allow your date to take you to a chaotic environment, if you end up at a club or at a sports bar when you could have been on a candlelight dinner or at a Barnes and Nobles, trading book knowledge with each other, or having a coffee date where you had the time and space socially and energetically to just be yourself, you've made a mistake if you've allowed a man to choose a date for you that doesn't match that environment or that energetic need for you that you have to have peace and kind of tranquility around you in order for you to function at your highest intellectual level. So again, think museum trip, bookstore date, coffee date over sports bar, Hooters, loud football night, or, one of those types of things, a club. A lot of times introverts end up in places that they just do not belong, and then they look out of place, and they make everybody else around them feel uncomfortable because they're trying to be hip, or they're trying to do what everybody else wants them to do, or do what their date wants them to do because they want to be liked. Make sure that your date is doing what you're comfortable with. As an introvert, it's the only way you can function. It's the only way you can thrive. Moving on, the fourth and fifth, I'm going to put them together. Dating for introverts tip I have is avoid texting as much as possible before a first date. In fact, if you're an introvert, only text enough to make it to a FaceTime date. And do the FaceTime date before you do the real date, right? So 4 and 5. 4 is, do not, under any circumstances, start a texting back and forth thread that takes you all the way up into the first date. Because as an introvert, you overthink, right? Which means you're more likely to fantasize about a person that you've never met and create a reality that hasn't been realized because you live so much in your head. Don't do that. It's emotionally and mentally dangerous for an introvert to be in this text message cycle of talking to a person and flirting with a person and creating a reality around who that person might be or become. Don't do that. And with that, instead of text messaging a lot, text message just enough to be like, listen, I don't like to go out with people that I don't know, that I'm not familiar with, that I haven't spoken to. If you want to go on a date with me, if a guy asks you out, tell him he needs to FaceTime date you first. You're going to FaceTime date, figure him out, talk to him, gain a rapport, go on your FaceTime date, and then go on a real date. As an introvert, when you're sitting across from a new person that you've never met at all, you're a lot more nervous, you're a lot more in your head, and you're not even comfortable with this person. You have to figure out what their conversational flow is, how they talk, their tones, their humor, the way they speak, what they mean when they say certain things. You don't want to waste any time trying to make that adjustment in front of them because you're already nervous, you're already in your head, and you're already kind of withholding your energy because you're not comfortable. If you go on a FaceTime date first, a lot of those butterflies and a lot of those blind date type of anxieties that happen when you've never really had an in-person conversation with a person, or when you never really conversed with them on a personal level, when you were looking them in their eyes and watching their real-time reaction to what you were saying, you get to get a lot of that out on the FaceTime date. And on a FaceTime date, you can still have your notebook beside you and glance over at it to make sure that you're giving the conversation what you think it needs to make a bond or build some warmth into the relationship. Avoid text messaging because as an introvert, you're going to overthink it. And then make sure you go on a FaceTime date before you go on a real date so that you don't have to make that real-time adjustment from being uncomfortable with a new person and make them feel like you're being cold or you're withdrawn or you don't like them. Because a lot of times when introverts go on dates and it's the first time they've ever seen a person and spoken to them face to face, if they didn't do FaceTime and they did a lot of texting, the first thing they do is come off cold, they come off withdrawn, and they make that person feel like they don't like them. And then that person goes on defense because they feel like they're being rejected. When they're not being rejected, they're just watching a person deal with an anxiety attack in real time. So anyway, I hope that helps. Those are 5 tips for dating as an introvert. There are probably more. If y'all want me to do a part 2 of this, let me know. If you also want 5 tips for dating as an extrovert, put that down in the comment section below. Follow me at kevhick24. If you need coaching, go to girltalkwithguys.com. Take advantage of the sale down below. It will be a limited time, so you don't want to miss that. I'll get with y'all later.